Hi, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. I wanted to share a bit more about movement in and through the lungs and the chest and the lymph and blood and a little energy movement. I shared that the emotion of grief and grief often live in the lung. So, well, this is based off of personal experience and also in traditional Chinese medicine. The system works in organ pairs, and the energy and function of the organ and what the organ is responsible for the whole. I am not trained in I'm trained in some shiatsu. I have a deep self-interest in traditional Chinese medicine, and I've been receiving and connecting with an acupuncturist, but my own specifically for, 15 years now. So that is a part of my own healing and practice. So I want to share what I glean and what I know. And so I'm not speaking anything I share, I'm not speaking as I know it all. That's never, I'm coming from a humble place and from practitioners and my own teachers and my own sense of self in this work. So the traditional Chinese medicine, specifically when looking at the meridians or the energy lines or the energy movement in the body, which is where then needles are placed. There's also, we could do acupuncture as well, but the liver and the large intestine, our emotion, our organs that hold the emotion of grief. And so we're going to focus because this focus is about breathing breathing and being present with our grief, breathing with our grief and what that means. And when we are aware of our breath, the opportunities for movement and expansion to happen as we would when we're breathing for our grief. And so I wanted to go a little bit deeper with that sharing, because I know for me, it's one of the places where I find I work a lot on myself. And so we can begin. I have summer clothing on and it's cold. So you can watch, you can work over clothing, you can do whatever feels like feels good and feels aligned. We want to just take a minute to come to this place of embodiment. And for me, embodiment is what's happening in our inner world and in our outer world in relation to all of our senses and our connection to our wholeness. So it isn't necessarily about what's happening in our body, but yes, and what's happening in relation to the outer world because of that. So getting embodied, getting grounded, inviting our grounding exercises in to come to this place of really noticing what's happening in our lungs. And this is an image that we work with a lot in Yoga Nidra. In my Yoga Nidra training, we talked about the lungs being the wings of the heart. And it's so beautiful to think about the ways in which the lungs work with the heart and expand and contract as the heart's doing its own thing. And so when we become aware of our breath, we are called into the present. So we let go of the grip of the mind when we become present, when we become in our breath. So inviting that presence in. And for me, it's morning. I'm actually just getting up. I do a lot of clearing. I just read this last night, morning. So MORN and then MOUR, morning. So I do a lot of clearing. I hold a lot of grief in the mornings. I'm stuffy. So there's a lot of movement that happens for me. I do tongue scraping. I do a lot of water. I'm going to drink some water. So water to move the lymph and the fluid, anything that got moving in the night or is like wanting to stay. I walk and then I do some sort of movement in yoga. I might have already done yoga nidra at this point, but I do a lot of clearing. So this is actually really nice for me to do this right away in the morning, but whenever you're watching or whenever you're called to do it. And I start with just a hello, spending time checking in with your breath. You may want to be taking some breaths as you hold, welcoming warmth, welcoming energy, noticing the shape of your breath. We're not changing your breath. And by that, I mean, we're not increasing the inhalation or increasing the exhalation. We can do that, which is really powerful because it's a autonomic nervous system response, which means it's involuntary, but it's one of the systems that we can shift the ways in which it's working in the body by shaping our breath. But we're not doing that right now. We're just checking in, noticing, am I breathing shallow? What does that feel like? If we're breathing shallow, likely we feel the breath up here. And so that triggers an stress and anxiety response. So it's whatever the response is, fight or flight, it's bringing the blood to areas of the body that are going to allow us to move faster. So we don't want that. We want to, at least I don't want that right now. Not that I want to go into this sleepy, zoned out feeling either, but I want to bring my breath down into my belly. So deep diaphragmatic breathing. So we are going to shape our breath a little bit now. And just notice what it feels like to my other hand is on my belly, below my navel. So between the pubic bone and the belly button, and really feeling the inhalation, push my belly out. So in this, it's dropping the pelvic bowl, everything flows out and down. And then the exhalation, everything pulls in and settles. So there's often a surrendering or a letting go with this process, but particularly the exhalation. So we want to just begin noticing the shape of our breath and our lungs in that rhythm. Noticing our breath and inviting you to take, to either be in the natural rhythm or to shape your breath and take some deeper breaths. So this is really what feels good to you. I'm just going to guide you in some, maybe choose your own adventure. Try this. So I'm going to continue to warm. And I do a lot of lymph movement because I'm clearing from the night. It also moves anything that has stayed in the brain. So throughout the night, the brain detoxes, and if we don't get good sleep, then the brain and the tissues in the brain are holding metabolic waste, are holding toxins. So lymph allows that movement. So lymph is really a very gentle, lymph drainage technique is a very gentle technique. It moves down, especially for moving in the neck, which is what I'm going to focus on. We can do lymph work all over the body, but lymph work engages the liquid layer, which is right below the superficial. There's the superficial layer of the skin, but there is deep lymph. There's deep lymph in the muscles and the organs, but I'm not going to get into that. So this is a precursor to more movement in the lungs and the chest, in thinking about where our grief lives in our body. Our grief can live anywhere in our body, but in particular, our grief comes to our heart and our lungs and our joints. So the movement is down to the collarbone and then like a J stroke up. It's very gentle. It's like the weight of a nickel, if that. You don't need any lubrication, although you can. And this point where the clavicles meet, it's called angulus venosus, and it's where the lymph gathers and then is moved to the organs of elimination. So it's actually moved to the heart and then the organs of elimination. So what I'm doing is, it's like a rainbow, and I'm not going back. It's a movement that, so I may look like I'm going in a circle, but I'm not. It's a movement that's like this, and then I'm lifting up and going back. So I'm not moving the lymph back. You want to be careful not to do that. It's all about energy following intention. Where your attention is, energy flows. Where attention goes, energy flows. So the intention is to move lymph, to move blood, to get things moving, to move things that are stagnant, that need some help moving. So lymph doesn't move on its own like the blood or the cerebrospinal fluid. Lymph can move during exercise, but manual lymph drainage is really what moves lymph. Somebody who's trained in moving lymph, but we can train ourselves because it's super amazing and easy to do. And then I like to do, so my hands, my elbows are actually going, my arms are going to move my hands down. So I'm bringing the lymph up. I'll do this a few times. Swallowing during this time is great. Clearing, I have lots to clear. And that's okay, because that just is my body and that's what's happening. So, so we can do, I'm doing more of a massage here, but we can move lymph and muscle, and we can engage a lot at the pecs and in the sternum. We might want to work through and down. I work with clients moving through the sternum, a lot of connection to the ribs and the chest and all that houses the lung. So at each layer that we release, we're allowing for more possibility for movement and spaciousness and release in the lung area, which feels really powerful, to create more space for movement of grief and for our breath, for living, for being present in our life, noticing our breath. So I'm going to do a little bit more lymph. So I'm going into the armpit, and the movement is up toward the body. Again, this is really gentle. So this is a site that we really need to be gentle with. There's lots of, this is the axillary node region. We need, and there's muscle in here too, that when we are contracting our breath, it gets tight. So working, I know I'm jumping around. It's really, the body just says, go here, go here. It's how I work. I really listen to the body. So I'm going to stick with this first. And then, so the movement is, you can rest your other hand on your opposite shoulder if that feels good. So you can see I'm moving up. So what is this doing? This is creating a vacuum for lymph movement to flow. So we'll come back here and allow that lymph that was moved to come. We're saying, hey, we're opening it up. We're opening it up. And now let's welcome you so you can do what you need to do. You can get flushed out and move to the organs of elimination. So when I do a lot of lymph work, say a whole session of lymph for someone, I just let them know that you will likely be peeing a lot. It might be clear, drinking a lot of water, drinking foods that are supportive in, some fresh foods that are supportive in this movement. And then, so the muscle layer, we can get into the armpit. We want to be careful. And if you have never done work in your own armpit or dug in your armpit, just be really careful. So I would just suggest you're able to grasp this edge of the pecs. I would just stay there and hold and massage. That can go a long way. When we hold, when we massage, when we offer blood, energy, holding, presence, breath, it opens us up to surrender, to let go, to release, to move through areas that feel tight and may be tight. And this is going to impact the whole. This is going to impact our arms and our back. And so remembering that our body is connected, and we aren't just working this area. When we work this area, we're impacting. It's sort of like throw a stone in a pond and there's a ripple effect. This is how the body works, working all areas of the body. That's why I like reflexology a lot, because we can access the lung points or the heart points without actually, getting into the lungs, which there are some techniques where we can, more visceral techniques. So anyway, off again. So I wanna move down the arm, because the arm is, let's see, how can I wanna just show a little bit of the long meridian goes down in the inside of the thumb. So you can, there's a point, we'll work, so holding this point. So when we do acupuncture or anything on any of the meridians, it's great to notice, ooh, that area is tight. Same with massage. When you're doing massage and you go, oh, wow, that's tight, or that's sore, or getting curious, what is this area saying to you? This is a great time to invite our breath and grounding and deep listening to the areas of the body that are talking to us when they're touched. And so versus, doing it mindlessly. And, this is a practice. It takes time. And often we receive messages from our body. And we can get curious about, oh, what is happening here? Why this side is much more, feels stagnant or sticky or warm or cold than this side, getting curious. So we're gonna palpate, which means to feel, to rub, to hold. There's lots of ways to palpate. You get to palpate the way that feels comfortable. So I am doing with an open hand, but you can use your thumb. I try to not use my thumb because I use my thumbs all the time. So we want to move down. We're going to move down. You can start, actually, I think that with the meridian, you can start at the lungs and move down, or you can start at the start of the meridian. And you can look this up. And I was going to share a person that I'm following that does traditional Chinese medicine. So I will try and remember that. Yeah, so you can start at the thumb and move through your arm. So I'm basically massaging my arm up the meridian. You want to get both sides. The meridian goes on both sides and comes down. And you may want to, if you have, we all have breast tissue, but if you have larger breasts, massaging, lots of stagnation can happen in the breast. It's really quite amazing what happens after a short amount of time, the impact it has on my own breathing and breath. So you can do that a couple times. If you feel like the other side of your arm needs some love, shake it out. Just shake, 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 all the way down. Shake. Deep breath. And then I want to show you, this is lung 6. So there's this, it's called the human snuff box. So 2 finger lengths from that is lung 6. So this is a great point for grief. Holding it, rubbing it, almost like if we were doing reflexology. So if I were an acupuncturist doing needles, I may place a needle here. So you may be like, I don't feel anything, but just know that when we work the meridians, we're working on the energy layer of the body that is associated with the organ. So it's really quite powerful. Even if we, some of this work is subtle. Some of this work is like getting to feel the subtle layers of the body if we aren't used to that, which is really powerful, because then we can just have a deeper relationship with our body and our energy field. And so I want to show you a couple more things, tools that some of you may have and some of you may not. And they're quite affordable as far as self-massage tools go. Gua sha, and you can actually use a spoon. I love the Chinese soup spoons. I believe they're like porcelain or ceramic or something that you can get. So you can use that. So what is gua sha? Gua sha is a type of traditional Chinese technique that moves stagnation and energy. Gua sha is what is happening when the energy is moved. It's a red petechiae. It's a movement of the stagnation of energy, so you can really see it. So when I'm really doing a lung clearing, a lung practice, I will gua sha. I don't gua sha every day, but it's, again, I'm moving toward the lymph and down. So I'm starting at the sternum and going down. But I'm just sharing that there are lots of ways to connect and be in relationship with this. And I'm doing the side because it's my right hand, so I'm spending a lot of time on the side, but you want to make sure that you do both sides. And if you want to know more about gua sha, I'm happy to share more. There's lots of videos. My teacher, Lita Herman, has a great course, has a great little book. But gua sha is great. Gua sha is great for the whole body. And it's a tool that I like to use. So I'm not always using my hands. And cups, I love cups. Cups are amazing. These are cups that stay in the shower with me. And again, this is a very inexpensive, amazing tool that is in the family of traditional Chinese medicine. However, I am trained in massage cupping. So I incorporate cupping into my work with clients, and it has become a really important daily practice for me. So I gua sha in the shower, but I'm not obviously in the shower. And so you will want some sort of lubrication. And I am assuming those that you have cups, you'll know this, but those of you who are watching and don't have cups, I'm just doing a little demo. So all kinds of sizes of cups, all kinds of cups. So these are the silicone cups that just you pop on and suction like that. And then I have cups that have, for lack of a better word, a gun that you suction. And then in traditional Chinese medicine and acupuncture, which I was trained in a little bit, is the use of glass and denatured alcohol and fire that creates the suction. So what's happening is there's a suction happening. So I'm pulling on it, it's not coming. So sometimes I'll move it. So this is all suctioning. So this is a way to move tight fascia and lymph and blood. It's a way to get things moving. When I feel some tightness in an area, I have some stuff in my right shoulder that I spend a lot of time in. So even working with the chest relaxes this. Yeah, so those are just some fun tools. And then I might just, thank you body, thank you lungs, thank you myself for taking this time to relax. If you have like essential oils, some, I don't know, peppermint or a breathe blend or eucalyptus, something that really opens the chest and the airways, that might be nice throughout. I want to share just a little bit more about the function of the lung meridian. And so in traditional Chinese medicine or shiatsu, I did have some training in shiatsu. Something is called kaio, it's depleted. And then something called jitsu, it's in excess. So when the lung is depleted, when the lung energy is depleted, these things can happen. Mental collapse, strong palpitations, hypersensitivity, over anxiety, breathing difficulties, antisocial, short breath. And I would add grief too. That's the psychological of the depleted lung, and then the physical, prone to overweight with elimination difficulties, heaviness in the head because of blood stagnation, upper part of the body prone to fatigue and coughing, difficulty in breathing and lying in prone position. So lying prone is face down. Easily susceptible to cold, inflammation in the respiratory organs, shoulder pain with slight fever, tendency to easily tear and cough, lack of energy and fatigue from overwork, lack of circulation and fatigue in the thumb. So that just a little more about the energy of the lung, the function of the lung to the whole self. And then when it's excess, it's obsessed with anxiety over small details with inability for letting go, tendency to sigh and choke while breathing. And then the physical of the excess, the jitsu, is prone to nasal congestions, colds, coughing, pain in chest, constipation, shoulder pain, bronchitis, asthma, and mucus. Thumb senses a pulling pain, chest muscles are tight. So, you know, finding balance with all of that. Not saying any of this to diagnose or scare, or just to be aware of the power that the lungs ooh, got stuff moving, that the lungs have to the whole, that it's, you know, when we are focusing on an area of the body, that it isn't just that area, it impacts our wholeness, our embodiment. So, whew, yeah, let's take a breath together. I want to put my hands over my lungs. Thank you all for being here, for watching. Let me know if you have any questions. Bye for now.